It's football. I've been watching it for 40 years.
Are you kidding me?
You're listening to Winning Cures Everything.
Game day, baby. Wake up or get out.
Here's your host,
a confident young man, a superb athlete,
Gary Seegers.
All right, let's get to it. We got a lot to discuss today. It's Winning Cures Everything. That's right, I'm your host, Gary Seegers. You can, of course, subscribe to the show. You can follow me on X at GaryWCE. Hopefully everybody's having a wonderful Monday thus far. It is Monday, March I don't even know what date it is. March the 11th. That's right. It is Conference Championship Week. ESPN, Fox, ACC Network, all these different things are going to be just shoving college basketball down your throat all week as we get ready for, of course, the big NCAA tournament. So lots going on there, but this is a college football show. And that's what we are going to talk about. Because this is a huge week for the sport of college football. The college football playoff negotiations are still happening as we speak. And there is a lot going on. Of course, Greg Sankey talked on SEC Network the other night while he was at the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament. He had a lot to say, so we'll talk about that. We are going to talk about Drew Pyne transferring and whatnot. We got a lot to talk about. Again, if you have not already subscribed, please do me that favor. That would certainly help out. This is a one-man show. If you are new to the show, it is just me. I edit all of this. I do the show in my car because I used to do it in my office, and I have started running low on time. I used to do it at my house. I have 2 children under the age of 6 in my house. It just gets a little more difficult to be able to find the time to be able to do this. So I still like talking to you guys. I still like having this community on YouTube and, of course, through the podcast. And this is the easiest, most efficient way for me to take the time to do the show. So that's the way it goes. WinningCuresEverything.com is the website. You can, of course, become a member on YouTube, $2.99 a month if you want to support the show. I've got projections up for win totals and whatnot on my Twitter page, X page, whatever it is, at GaryWCE again. So let's dive into topic number 1 for today. Would the SEC and the Big Ten actually break away from the other conferences if things don't go well in the college football playoff negotiations, the CFP, if you will? And Greg Sankey spent a little time on Friday at the SEC Women's Basketball Tournament. He was on the SEC Network, and he said, and I found this to be very interesting, he said that it has been a 4-year work project for him that others have decided to put on the shelf for 2 years. And what he means there, I would assume, is he is pretty peeved at the people that did the alliance, right? The people that came up with the 12-team format. It was not a group effort as far as everybody being in the room and deciding on this. This was Greg Sankey, Craig Thompson, the former Mountain West commissioner, Bob Bowlesby, the former Big 12 commissioner, and Jack Swarbrick, the soon-to-be former athletic director at Notre Dame. Those are the guys that got together and decided that this 12-team format with the 4 buys and, it's a 5+7 model now, but it was going to be 6+6, they all decided that that was going to be the best idea. And then the alliance came in and decided, wait a minute. The ACC and the Pac-12 decided that they wanted to join the alliance because, you can't just grab Texas and Oklahoma and, destroy the Big 12 in the process and get away with it. So we're going to sit on this thing, and we're going to get some things straight in this sport before we decide to move ahead with any kind of playoff expansion. And Sankey, of course, was in the same position that any of those other conferences would have been in. Had the Pac-12 actually gotten things done with Texas and Oklahoma, and I believe it was Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I mean, if you remember back in 2010 or 2011, whenever it was, there was a chance that the Pac-12 was about to be the Pac-16. Like, it was legitimately going to be the Pac-16, and they were going to have Texas and Oklahoma. It was to the point that Bob Stoops at Oklahoma was figuring out what his recruiting staff was going to look like for Southern California. They had shifted. They were moving to the Pac-12. So anybody that Texas and Oklahoma had called to get out of, the Big 12, anybody would have picked up the phone and they would have said, okay. Like, this is not hard. So Sankey did what anybody would have done, because Texas and Oklahoma were going to leave for either the Big 10 or the SEC, period. Because they knew that the revenue was not going to be there in the Big 12. Just the way it goes. So he is irritated, it seems. He is still irritated at the people that were part of the alliance back in the day. And I don't think that I blame him for that. But on the other side, with the Big Ten, Tony Petitti just came in. Both of these guys, Petitti and Sankey, have both said in the past that they are looking out for the greater good of college athletics. They are trying to help the overall health of the sport. And while sometimes these actions don't necessarily show that, the sport is going in a direction where you're going to have revenue, and there's going to be a split, period. We're not going to be able to pretend anymore that Kennesaw State, who is moving up to FBS, is in the same sport as Alabama and Texas and Ohio State. Like, they're not competing for the same things. Although at the end of the year, technically they are, because they're all under the same umbrella. But these are not the same things, right? In football, it's a lot more difficult to have a Cinderella than it is in college basketball. Completely different sports. So you're not going to see a Coastal Carolina go in and beat Notre Dame on the road, and then go beat Ohio State, and then beat Georgia, and then have to win a fourth game to get to a national championship. That stuff's not going to happen. Same reason why you don't see Cinderellas get very far in the NCAA tournament. You might see one make the Final Four. Butler is the only one I can think of that made the national championship game. But regardless, the reason I bring this up is the Big Ten. It's not like this has not come up even in the past year, right? If you have the correct media partners, then yes, a split is always possible. Remember, we didn't even have national championship games. The NCAA, or the national championship, is basically a ranking at the end of the year. That is who the NCAA recognizes as the national champ. So we've had plenty of split championships in the past. Now, you hoped that with the BCS and the 14 playoff that went away. But it only went away because voters voted the way of the playoff. That's it. Remember, UCF still claims a national championship, even though they didn't make the 14 playoff back in 2017. I guess it was 18? Probably 17. I guess it was. Scott Frost was still around in Orlando at the time. So that is something that still works, right? It's still voting. It's still whatever. And if you are the Big Ten and the SEC and these things are not going the way that you want them to go, why would you share that revenue, especially when you know that athlete compensation is coming up? But the reason, again, that I bring this up is the Big Ten, just in September, this was something that was brought up, and I believe it was Seth Davis that reported it, but Fox was trying to put together their own version of the NIT. Like, the NIT, the National Invitation Tournament, that's the secondary tournament. There's also the CBI, College Basketball Invitational, and something else. But the NIT had switched up to where they were any mid-major team that won their conference but didn't win their conference tournament to make it to the NCAA tournament. If you were a conference regular season winner, then you automatically got a shot in the NIT. Well, the NIT did away with that. That is no longer a thing. So no more auto bids to even a secondary playoff. And the reason that they did this is because the TV ratings were terrible. Because nobody wanted to watch, Stetson just made it into the NCAA tournament, I believe, but nobody wanted to watch Stetson in the NIT against Holy Cross or whatever, right? And a lot of people didn't want to watch even bigger teams, Wisconsin against High Point or whatever, right? It's just the fact of the matter. Is it fair? No. Does it make perfect sense when you're trying to get as many eyeballs on your product as possible? Yes. You want the bigger brands. And I totally get it. And that's what the playoff is going to be about with the Big Ten and the SEC. More people are going to watch SEC and Big Ten teams than are going to watch Big 12 and ACC teams. TV numbers as they go right now, the history of TV numbers will tell you that. It's just the bottom line. But the Seth Davis thing that was reported is Fox tried to do their own NIT competitor, a different college basketball tournament that was going to take only members of the Big Ten, the Big East, and the Mountain West. So they were going to have a 16-team tournament, which I don't know that the numbers would necessarily work out for them that way, but they were going to try and do a 16-team tournament with only the conferences with which they had contracts. So if they owned the media rights to you, you were required to be in this tournament. Now, I think the whole thing ended up being tabled, but again, it's not like this hasn't been proposed in the past. It was just proposed 6 months ago. So that's definitely something to look at, because if you don't think Fox is in the ear of the guys in the Big Ten, you're crazy. Fox owns 60% of the Big Ten. It's the truth of the matter. So I think we are going to eventually see a break-off, and I don't know if it's going to be because of the CFP. I do wonder if all of the stuff that's going on with the college football playoff, all these little wins that it feels like the Big 12 and the ACC are getting and whatnot, where, the Big 10 and the SEC were going to get the only 2 automatic buys in a 14-team playoff. But now, they backed off of that. These are all things that the SEC and the Big 10 are throwing out there as, hey, we tried. We tried to negotiate, but they didn't want to do this. And, we were trying to do the revenue distribution this way, the way that seemed fair. Now, is it fair if it's only fair to 2 conferences? Well, maybe. But regardless, we are getting to a point where we're up against a deadline this week. And I'm incredibly curious which direction it's going to go, because I think that we're going to see a breakaway. And it might just be because of the athlete compensation, because the ACC and the Big 12 may not have the money to be able to compete with the Big 10 and the SEC as far as paying athletes. But, we're just going to have to see what happens, because I think that's the direction that this thing's going, and all of this stuff is just fluff for now. That's it. That's the whole shebang. Let's move to number 2. The mob tried to fix SEC football games. This is something that was sent to me over the weekend. Mo Hassan, I believe, former Vanderbilt quarterback, former USC quarterback. He was a backup at Vanderbilt. He never played at USC. But he was approached by, and these are his words, the mob at Jason Aldean's bar in Nashville, and they offered him $300,000 to potentially fix games for them. Now, my guess is, because if it's a backup quarterback that you're going after, I don't envision that being exactly who you're going after. I don't know that he got offered $300,000, but they may have said that they had $300,000 available to try and fix a game. Now, my initial thought was, okay, he was going to be an in, right? He was going to be a connection to somebody else that could actually have some kind of, some kind of an actual impact on a game. That's my guess. But the other part of this was Hassan said in a response to somebody on X or whatever, one of these social media platforms, because people, of course, were skeptical, I think would be a good word there. When they said, bro, this never really happened, what are you doing? What impact were you going to have on this? He responded back with, yo, player props are really, like, apparently you've never heard of player props. Like, people bet on player props all the time. $300,000 to fix somebody's player prop stats? I mean, it would take a gargantuan number of bets for you to be able to make any kind of a profit after giving somebody $300,000 to fix a player prop. Those are novelty bets. They don't allow you to get down a whole lot of money on those, even on game day. Like, you come right up to kickoff, and they're still not going to give you a ton on player props. You want to toss a couple $1,000s on it? Yes. Absolutely. They'll be fine with that. But they are not going to put themselves in a position, the sports books, to lose a ton of money. So giving a player $300,000 to throw for 255 yards instead of 256, like, that's not going to make a huge difference. So I don't think player props is where it's at. If you could potentially find a way to make a total go under or make a total go over or something along those lines, maybe you could get down enough at going to different sports books, et cetera, but like player props, I don't think that's where it's at. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm still highly skeptical of this. And of course, this comes up right before or right after, I can't remember, the Temple UAB stuff. Remember last year there was an investigation into the UAB New Mexico game, I believe. It was just no, it wasn't UAB New Mexico. It was a former UAB quarterback at New Mexico. I cannot remember the game, but regardless, it's just I don't necessarily buy the fact that somebody was offering this kid $300,000 to fix a game when he has very little impact on a game. Now, this would have been back in 2019 because he was with USC from like 2020 to 2022. But again, like it was right after sports betting was legalized in the country, but there were still a lot of states that did not have it. So, at that point, I don't even think Tennessee had sports gambling in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And if you do gamble in Tennessee, it's mobile gambling only. There's no brick and mortar. So it's kind of hard to get down a lot of money. I don't know. I got a ton of questions about fixing games in college football. It's just very intriguing. I'll say that. Very intriguing. Topic number 3. Drew Pyne has committed to Missouri. Now, I am not going to lie. I didn't even know that Drew Pyne, the former Notre Dame and former Arizona State quarterback, was even in the portal. Very surprising to me because he just moved to Arizona State. He was at Notre Dame, and he transferred over to Arizona State. Tommy Rees took a new job at Alabama. It seemed like, everybody knew Sam Hartman was going to be the quarterback at Notre Dame. He was going to be the starter. Drew Pyne was never even supposed to start the season that he started at Notre Dame. And yet, he got to start, and then he goes to Arizona State, and he was going to start but he got hurt, and Jaden Rashada took over, and Jaden Rashada got hurt. Everybody was hurt for Arizona State last year. But I didn't know that he was even in the portal again. Drew Pyne is fine as a quarterback, I suppose. He's not a big-time difference maker. I am curious. Missouri fans have said in the past that they would have you believe that this could be Eli Drinkwitz potentially keeping Pyne away from another SEC program. Maybe. There are coaches that do that. Do we think that Missouri may have done that with Jake Garcia? Maybe. But at the same time, I think it just could be to make sure that they've got some decent quarterback depth and at least some kind of competition in the room. That's my guess. You want some kind of competition when you're a college football coach. So, very surprised that they took this guy. But, if you want to add depth, it makes all the sense in the world. Makes all the sense because this kid has played on some of the biggest stages. He was hurt last year, so, maybe you're getting some kind of an NIL discount or whatever that might be. I couldn't imagine that Drew Pyne is asking for a ton of NIL money, but or maybe any at all. Who knows? But, yeah, that's I found that intriguing. Drew Pyne committing to Missouri. Let me tell you right quick about TicketSmarter. TicketSmarter.com. Tickets are expensive. Everything is expensive, especially tickets to concerts, sporting events, plays, whatever, right? If you want to go see something, it's going to cost you just about an arm and a leg to be able to go do it. NCAA tournament is going to be in Memphis this week, and tickets are hefty. Next week, and tickets are hefty. So, if you're going to buy the tickets to go see these shows, why not save some money doing it? And you can do that by using the promo codes. WCE10 is going to get you $10 off an order of off an order of $100 or more. It's WCE10 is the promo code. So not all letters, but WCE10, WCE10, and then WCE20. That's right, WCE20 is going to get you $20 off an order of $300 or more. So if you're getting some good seats, I would highly recommend that you use TicketSmarter because they're going to have the best prices anyway, and then you can save money on top of it. This ain't a one-time only code. It's not for first-time users or whatever. It's anytime you want to buy tickets, you toss in those codes, WCE10, WCE20, and that's going to save you some money. So think smarter, TicketSmarter. Topic number 4 here. Mike Hart is leaving Michigan. Mike Hart was, of course, he played running back at Michigan, quote-unquote Michigan man. He was the interim coach at one point in 2023. I think that after Harbaugh left, I think he was actually appointed as interim coach. But, Hart has had health problems and all kinds of stuff. He was the running backs coach at Indiana all the way up to 2020 before he joined Harbaugh's staff in 2021. He's fairly accomplished. He has not recruited well at the running back position at Michigan, but he has certainly developed. Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum, fantastic job that he's done with those guys. They are really, really good. The timing is strange, right? Because and maybe this is just Mike Hart, wanting to leave. I'm curious if there's something there between him and Sharon Moore. Like, did Moore not want him to be a part of the staff, or did Hart just want to leave? But this news popped this morning, and I was surprised. I'll say that. It just seemed, part of the whole point of hiring Sharon Moore as the head coach was to keep the foundation, I thought. Now, Harbaugh took the guys that he wanted to with him to the NFL. I am curious if Mike Hart thought that Harbaugh was going to take him to the NFL as well. Maybe this is a health thing. Maybe, there's so many different things that we could speculate about, but I just find the timing to be weird. The middle of March is not typically when you see a coaching change in college football, especially when spring practice is getting ready to go on or is already going on. So I'm a little bit shocked by this one. So we'll see where he ends up, or if he ends up anywhere. He might just be, he might have soured on the idea of coaching. We shall see. We shall see. Topic number 5. ESPN announced their spring football game broadcast details. ESPN Plus is going to have just a metric crap ton of spring games this year. I mean, it's all over the place. They're going to have SEC Network Plus. All of that will be a part of the ESPN Plus package. Just a ton of stuff. So I would highly recommend that you get ESPN Plus if you haven't already. If you don't already have ESPN Plus, make sure that you get that. So along with that, who else do we have? ACC Network is going to have all the ACC games. The Big Ten Network is going to have a ton of Big Ten games. I mean, there's just a bunch, right? There's just a lot that you should be checking out this spring. The biggest surprise to me, or surprises to me, was one that Alabama, their spring game on April 13th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, that is going to be the only spring game that is broadcast on ESPN, like big-time ESPN. And then aside from that, let's see. Oh, aside from that, the Auburn spring game is not going to be broadcast at all this year. Like, I was almost shocked that Auburn, I don't know if they decided not to. Like, maybe Hugh Freeze is working on some stuff, or maybe they are trying to get as many people as possible. But it does seem weird, and I do wonder how the players feel about that, because everybody else is going to be on somewhere. So I don't know why Auburn wouldn't be broadcast somewhere, because Auburn fans want to know how Hugh Freeze is going to fix things, because last year did not go down well. But again, I suppose we will see. We will see. Topic number 6. John Canzano wrote about the Pac-12 turning down some huge money back in 2018. And you want to talk about revisionist history. Looking back to see the things that could have changed in that conference that Larry Scott could have done before George Kliavkoff, to where he would have put this conference in the right path, or on the right path, to be set up for the future. That was a 100-plus-year-old conference that just went away because they just mismanaged the crap out of it. Now, I don't know that I would have done this, what was offered to them. Let's go on and talk about that. JohnCanzano.com is the website if you want to go join up. It's subscriber-based. All that. Canzano's got good stuff. He's super well-sourced. Boy, he was wrong on the demise of the Pac-12. But he reported that the Pac-12 turned down $1 billion in private equity for a 15% stake in their media rights back in 2018. Now, we already know that Larry Scott, the former Pac-12 commissioner, we know that he truly believed that the worth of the conference, of their media rights going forward, was going to be gargantuan. And he thought this because he was super tied in with a lot of these guys out in Silicon Valley. And he thought that Apple TV or Netflix or Amazon or whatever was going to not just save the conference, but be the media rights partner of the future for the Pac-12. He was setting up for the future. They had built their own studio. They had their own TV network and were trying to get their own distribution rights and blah, 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 blah. But he just mismanaged this. He misread the room, and basically, none of that stuff ever came to fruition. But if you were offered in 2018 $1 billion for a 15% stake, I know that I've said on here that I don't know that you want private equity involved in college athletics, But something like this, 2018, you kind of knew what the tea leaves were saying. You kind of had a feeling of which direction these things were going. I think that I would have thought a couple of times about that. I might would have put a little more effort in. So $1 billion for a 15% stake. I mean, we're talking Shark Tank for college athletics. I mean, this is wild stuff. I thought that we would have seen more. I thought something would. I cannot believe that conference doesn't exist anymore. Just cannot believe it. All right, last thing for the day. What is the most iconic college football play of all time? This was on Reddit, CFB. Highly recommend that you check that out and join the tailgate over there. The kick six, Vince Young on 4th down, the Boise Statue of Liberty, the Hail Flutie, Boston College against Miami back in '84. Let's see. The band is on the field, of course, Stanford and Cal, which I completely forgot that John Elway was the quarterback for Stanford that year. And then App State and Michigan, where App State blocked the field goal. We could dive into this more. I think as it sits right now, the most iconic play is probably the kick six. That's my guess. Like, the Boise Statue of Liberty didn't have a lot of stakes behind it. Band on the field, not a lot of stakes. The Vince Young thing, a lot of people are going to remember that. I think for the modern era, it's probably the kick six. For a generation past, it's probably Vince Young. Before that, it's probably the band on the field. I don't think it's possible to have just one most iconic play. That's the way that I view it. So, all right. I appreciate you guys for checking out the show. Again, I'm traveling on Wednesday. I'm going to try and do some podcasts from where I am. So stay tuned to the show. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on the podcast as well. And follow me on X, @GaryWCE. With that said, let's get out of here. You guys take care of yourself. Take care of each other. God bless college football. And hopefully, of course, championship week. Hopefully all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Make sure and follow me on Twitter, @GaryWCE. If you want to toss in a question, you can email me, Gary@winningcureseverything.com. Make sure and hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next time.